Well, what is up, everybody?
Hello, hello, hello.
If you don't know me, Robert, middle school pastor.
Jeff over here. Lauren on the camera. How you doing?
Lauren behind the camera.
Yay.
Our faithful.
She looks like an executive producer over there, man.
She really does. She's got the headphones and everything. I love it.
It looks good.
It's great. She's pushing play. She's listening to us, making sure we sound good. All that. She hates it. We called her out. But hey, we are here. We just finished up. If you've been with us the last few weeks, our I'm Anxious series for 5 weeks. 5 weeks.
Is it 5?
Yep. Wait. We recorded this before the 5th week, but 5 weeks with the giving night.
That's right. Okay.
Super pumped for that tomorrow night. You'll already know what had happened because this will be afterwards. But
yeah, I mean, so you're talking. We've gone over a lot, I think, and I think in case people missed, I definitely would encourage them to go back and watch. But to sum it up, I think it's been a great time dissecting issues that are clearly like prevalent in our kids' lives.
Yes.
And I think now more than ever, post-corona, still I think hopefully coming out of the coronavirus, but at the same time too, things they've dealt with, how they've dealt with it. I mean, we've seen all kinds of reactions.
Yes, and this idea came up. You actually brought it up to our team, but I think our high school student leadership team brought it up to you.
Yeah.
Why did they want us to do this series? What was the heart behind it from those kids that are literally in the midst of this?
Well, one conversation in particular, I remember pulling in. I don't remember this, but I pulled into an Albertsons. I was going to the grocery store, and we were finishing up a student leadership meeting via Zoom, and so. We'd asked, like, what's a good topic? What should we discuss? And then one of the kids called me back later on that day and said, hey, like, or maybe you mentioned during the conversation, he said, my friend's just obsessed with, like, all this, like, with his phone. He's obsessed. Like, what do you mean? He goes, it's like, it's making him anxious, man, because he's always looking at the news, always paying attention to all these things. And I'm like, yeah, that'll do it.
That'll mess you up.
And so, this is probably, like, maybe September, October. When did we start the series?
We started in January.
So
it would have been October, November.
Okay. And that's what they mentioned. So I said that might be a great way to get it to lead out as opposed to a typical New Year's kickoff.
I know, kicking off the New Year's, we usually do like resolutions, how to better yourself, how's your soul, all that kind of stuff. But I think this is key because, you're right. What he was saying was like there's so much stuff that plays into the anxiety that these teens go through every day, and us even as adults. And so the conversation stemmed from like social media and phones.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, so that was where, for me, is okay. So understanding that, looking at it, and then I heard a sermon from Tony Evans about technology, probably back like in probably like August or so.
I remember you bringing that up,
and I remember he mentioned technology. Okay, I'm gonna go back into it. So I read the story of Tower of Babel.
Yep. And
you see all these different things that stem from one, a lack of obedience, but also when you have fear. When everything's fear-based and what fear can do. And so technology came up in that, the fear of fear of loss, fear of something new. I mean, everything our kids have experienced, like fear of, it's in that one story. So we kicked off the story with that. We talked about the idea.
We did not kick it off with that. That was week 2.
No, it wasn't.
We started with Jehoshaphat.
Oh, same thing. Whatever. I'm sorry. Whatever. Anyways,
Lauren's over there nodding behind the camera.
Thank you. We started with Jehoshaphat. We wanted to start with week 1.
We almost started Tower of Babel.
You guys looked
right
at me
out
like
the
I was
gate.
crazy. Lauren was mad. You were so
the Holy Spirit changed your heart,
yes,
Jeff.
And I remember you guys looked at me like, what are we doing? Like, what's he doing? Why is he changing it? I remember that specifically doing whatever. Anyways, beside the point. So we go through Jehoshaphat and you look at what did he do in a moment where he was surrounded by enemies, like surrounded by people that were like, this is uncomfortable, this is awkward. How do we handle this? And you saw what he was willing to do when it came to leaning on God and calling on God. And said, we'll wait until you say something. We'll just wait until you tell us what to do. We're just going to wait, relax, and because we want you to be with us throughout this. Now, we talked time and time again throughout this anxiety series that it's very easy to say, oh, just pray on it or just wait for God. It's like, oh my gosh, okay.
That's tough.
But it's important to at least start there and you address it there, and that's what we did.
Great.
Week 2 talked about technology. Yes,
you talked social media, loved it, great conversation.
People are...
I think that one cut to the heart of like some of our students. I think.
I hope at some level.
I think it cut to the heart a little bit of me because I like you. I could get up there and teach on it, but then I'll go home and sit on my phone.
But that's the thing. So like I even through that, like I've learned watching like this is not good. This is not healthy.
Yep.
Like even through the pandemic, I've mentioned this multiple times. I'm not doing these news.
I don't want to read the news articles.
Swipe left, swipe right, look up, look down. Like people posting all these things on social. It's like they don't even know what they're saying. They're just talking to talk, and then people are freaking out. How dare you? You're 100 million miles away, but you offended me. Are you kidding? So all this stuff is like, this is dumb. So you take that in consideration. So we talk about technology, talk about leaning on God during anxiety, and really what it means to really submit to Him. But at the same time, with this technology, put it down, right?
Yep.
Put it down and just, what is God asking you to do? And listen to His voice in those moments. However, you went into week 3 and week 4.
I think, honestly, week 3 stemmed out of that social media talk, because I remember me and you had conversations of, is this going to be too similar, where I was talking about Zacchaeus and how he was trying to please everybody around him. And I think that stems from our social media, as we want to please everybody. We want everyone to like our photos.
Yep.
We want everyone to like the clothes we're wearing. Yep. We have to have the newest stuff. And I think our anxiety stems from that. But the idea behind Zacchaeus is that he is pleased with you. He's not pleased with your clothes. God's not pleased with the car you drive, the job you work, like all of this stuff. He's pleased with who you are. He was pleased with Zacchaeus not because of what he did, because he was a child of Abraham, because he was a child of God, right? And that's where we need to draw our social anxiety comes from all the people around us, when our comfort and peace should be coming from our Creator, who already accepts us and loves us for who we are. So yeah, week 3 kind of stemmed out of that. And then we decided kind of late in the game for week 4 and 5, where we were going to tackle depression and suicide.
Yeah. It was I don't know how did it come up? I forget. We shifted something.
It was tough, because talking about the series, we were like, that's a whole series in and of itself. We'll tackle it at another time. Yeah. And then we had some stories come up. We talked to some people, and it was like, no, we need to talk about this now. Yeah. And I think it's very timely. But we talked about that week 4, how that you are not alone, and that there's so much more to live for. And the idea of, like, Paul was sitting in prison. He was writing one of the darkest letters that he wrote, but yet it ended on one of the most joyous notes that he's ever written. And this idea that he was just in this moment of defeat, but he realized, I've got so much that God has put in front of me. I've got so much to live for. I'm going to pour into that. I'm not going to let the darkness, I'm not going to let all of this overtake all the good that is in my life. And even if we can just see that small seed, we realize, like, okay, there's more. There's a way out of this. I have people around me. But then week 5, we come to where we're talking about giving back, and we're giving to the Suicide Prevention Nevada organization, right? But it's the idea that when we take the focus off us, it alleviates anxiety. But more than that, we're talking about how you can change somebody's story, and how people have changed your story, and leaning on others and how they're pouring into your life really helps with that idea behind the suicide and the depression. It's the people that get us out of that. It's the people that move us forward in that.
That's because I think your thoughts aren't so much concerned about you. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at, I mean, think about this. Like, when Jesus died, and as you're talking, I thought about this. When Jesus died, it wasn't about him. Everything was involved. Like, he had so much. The guy was bleeding.
He had so much anxiety that he even prayed to God, is there another way?
Is there another way? Yes. So blood. Sweating blood the whole time, and then at the same time, take this away. I don't want to deal with this. But then realize this big picture. This is about other people. This is about humanity. If we have
anyway, but Jeff, while we were talking about this, I want to kind of close this out, put a wrap on this I'm Anxious series. And I was thinking today, literally today, I brought this to you right before, of this idea between Mary and Martha. And there's a story in Luke 10, I think, where Jesus is coming to the home of Mary and Martha, and these two polar opposite people. We find Martha, who's running around doing all the chores. She's doing cooking, she's cleaning, she's getting everything ready for Jesus, who, when we're thrown into the story, he's already there. So she's doing this, trying to prep, but she's running behind. A little anxious, right? You like to host people at your house.
I do.
Is it a mess like the day before?
It is. No, it's more like hours before, because I don't really care. But I enjoy that piece of it.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me. But
it doesn't give any anxiety. Does it give anxiety to your wife?
Oh yeah, both. It's like we don't like what's happening. Like the floor's not clean, but it's gotta clean the floor. Like, make sure this isn't ready. So this thing's 30 more minutes.
Yep.
So the stove's got to be ready, but the grill's not hot enough yet, so you can't put the food on. So now it's like, Super Bowl. People
see, they're gonna realize that when they're adults. It's not just like people show up at your house and it all works out.
No, good
Lord.
But
in the story, you find Martha doing all that, and you find Mary sitting in the living room. She lives in this house too, not just Martha. Like, this is their house. And she's sitting in front of Jesus, just listening to him. And I think that's such a good picture of when we get so bogged down by all the things in our life, the social media, the people, the anxiety, the depression, all of that, where we can just take a posture of sitting at Jesus' feet.
Pause. Pause.
Pause. Take a breath.
Yeah.
And it really helps out because then you can move forward in the smartest way possible. Like if you have those chores still, you take a second, think about them. You can tackle those chores. You're having a hard time, take a second, remember they're good. You can move forward from that, all of that kind of stuff. But it doesn't end with just sitting at Jesus's feet, because then we go out and we do things and we lean on things that Jesus has put in our life to help overcome that anxiety, the people, the different things that we can do.
It's that word, what is it? The psalmist says, Selah.
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 Look
Just
it up.
pause.
S-E-L-A-H.
It's
It's just pause, take a breath.
Just pause.
Because I think truly what will help us overcome this anxiety is really leaning back on Jesus and seeing what he has for us. I really
think we'll get to do it. I think I'm just truly glad our kids were willing to be vulnerable enough to share their thoughts that sparked it. And so we know it's not easy, but I think kids are going to take it a day at a time, and hopefully this has given them some sort of outlet, if you will, over these last 4 or 5 weeks, and they'll get a chance to really not just be quote unquote cured, but how to not even necessarily cope, but how to take it a day at a time, and just understanding that they're going to have anxiety, going to have doubts and all this and fear, but how to handle it in the future.
How do we alleviate it as much as possible, and how do we move through it when we can't alleviate it?
Yeah, gotcha.
I think that's great. So this has been Behind the Series. This is Robert. This is Jeff. Might do this some more, but we love you guys.
Lauren on the camera, thank you very much.
Lauren, thank you so much. You're so helpful. It was amazing having you behind the camera. I hope we sound good. If anything's blurry, if anything sounds bad, it's Lauren's fault.
Probably my fault.
Well,
thank you guys.
We love you guys.
Take care.